Travis Wayne Goodsell. Despite the blatantly obvious for the thumbnail picture, it took me 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours. Mormons will still reject me. Mormons will still deny the truth. Even after Oaks got rid of the first presidency. They were never really the first presidency of Joseph Smith. Wrong keys. They were a first presidency from the Quorum of the 12. Irene even mentioned that when he called it an apostolic interregnum. The first presidency is not apostles. Wrong quorum. Mormons don't care. The church is true at all costs, and they will murder you to prove how true it is. Which means Mormons are ripe for Armageddon and the end of the world that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints prepared for. They know the truth about storehouses. They know that Brigham Young inserted forged documents to destroy the storehouse of Joseph Smith. Section 42 goes over all about the storehouses. Starting in verse 30. Behold, thou wilt remember the poor, and consecrate of thy properties for their support, that which thou hast to impart unto them with a covenant and a deed which cannot be broken. And inasmuch as ye impart of your substance unto the poor, ye will do it unto me. And they shall be laid before the bishop of my church and his counselors, 2 of the elders or high priests, such as he shall appoint, or has appointed and set apart for that purpose. And it shall come to pass that after they are laid before the bishop of my church, and after that he has received these testimonies concerning the consecration of the properties of my church, that they cannot be taken from the church, agreeable to my commandments. Every man shall be made accountable unto me, a steward over his own property, or that which he has received by consecration, and as much as is sufficient for himself and family. And again, if there shall be properties in the hands of the church, or any individual of it, more than is necessary for their support after this first consecration, which is the residue to be consecrated unto the bishop, it shall be kept to administer to those who have not, from time to time, that every man who has need may be amply supplied, and receive according to his wants. Therefore the residue shall be kept in my storehouse, to administer to the poor and the needy, as shall be appointed by the high council of the church, and the bishop and his council. And for the purpose of purchasing lands for the public benefit of the church, and building houses of worship, and building up the new Jerusalem, which is hereafter to be revealed. 19 July 1840, Brigham Young was pissed, refused to publish it. That my covenant may be gathered in one, not scattered around the earth, baptized in one, in that day when I shall come to my temple. I'm deeply concerned we will not have it. And this I do for the salvation of my people. Mormons choose to be wicked. Therefore we will not have it. And it shall come to pass that he that sinneth and repenteth not shall be cast out of Zion. He's talking about church. That's Joseph Smith's time. It's a pattern for the latter days. And shall not receive again that which he has consecrated unto the poor and the needy of my church. Or in other words, unto me. For inasmuch as ye do it unto the least of these, ye do it unto me. For it shall come to pass that which I spake by the mouths of my prophets shall be fulfilled. For I will consecrate of the riches of those who embrace my gospel among the Gentiles unto the poor of my people, who are of the house of Israel. It is very clear that every church that is established, which we now call wards, is required by the word of scriptures, which is the law to govern the church. Verse 59. That every ward have a storehouse. Brigham Young knew this. He had this. That's why we have it. He knew that the storehouse was only for the poor. And yet, came out with section 119 in his 1844 Doctrine and Covenants after assassination of Joseph Smith. No more for the poor. And what is also obviously a cover-up. This was February 9th, 1831, section 42. Section 120, which I've caught both Oakes and Anderson lying about. Brigham Young put this in his 1876 Doctrine and Covenants. This was July 8th, 1838. This is actually by Joseph Smith. This was after the failure of the Kirtland Safety Society. Joseph Smith is going back to section 42. As Bruce R. McConkie put from the original document in the Joseph Smith papers, but for some reason Brigham Young did not put it in the text, making known the disposition of the properties tithed as named in the preceding revelation from 1831, section 42. And then he talks about it in 51 or 2, and I think 78 or something like that. So both Oakes and Anderson know this. And yet, Brigham Young put it as section 120 after section 119 that he had put in 1844, which has nothing to do with section 42, giving to the poor. So, nonetheless, it is very obvious that Oakes and Anderson are lying to us. Verily, thus saith the Lord, the time is now come, that it shall be disposed of by a council, composed of the first presidency of my church, and of the bishop and his council, and by my high council, and by mine own voice unto them, saith the Lord. Even so, amen. I don't see quorum of the 12 apostles in that list. Are you really going to threaten me and lie to deny? That somehow the High Council is the quorum of the 12? You really don't know your Doctrine and Covenants, huh? Well, Oakes and Anderson believe that you're stupid. That's why they lied. They know the truth. They lied. They know the High Council is not the quorum of the 12 apostles. They lied. Outright lied. To deceive Mormons. That's why they didn't reference it. Because they knew you wouldn't look it up. This is also why we didn't even have Welfare Square until after the Great Depression. They weren't inspired to obey the scriptures, to be prepared in advance. Brigham Young had his own economy, Section 119. It is just outright disgusting. So, again, we'll go over the affidavit of Thomas B. Marsh, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in 1838. Quorum of the 12 Apostles is for missionary work. They're supposed to go out and preach the Book of Mormon. They're not supposed to lie about it. They're supposed to preach what it says. So, as the president, it is his responsibility to assign the various missionaries of the 70 of the 12 apostles, the missionaries, elders, to go out to the places where there is no church established, to see if they can establish a church. And then they return and report. Say, we went to the town where you said, we established a church in that town. Great. Thomas B. Marsh writes it down. Church established in such and such. Springfield, USA. Simpsons. Homer Simpson as bishop. They don't appoint the leaders. They establish the church. Then Joseph Smith would call the leaders and appoint them. Missionaries would have nothing to do with the running of the church. The only time they would go back to a church is if they were asked to be a speaker for the conference of that church. It's all right there in the Joseph Smith papers. The law to govern the church, which most of it was denied being put in the Doctrine and Covenants. And so, in his affidavit, he brings up that there were a company consisting of all that are considered true Mormons, called the Danites. These men told Thomas B. Marsh that they had taken an oath to support the heads of the church in all things. Obviously not Joseph, though they claim Joseph was the leader, that they say or do, whether right or wrong. And so there was some people who were a little concerned about this group, these hardliners, and concerned about the moral and religious principles that they were espousing. No duh. Nonetheless, they were threatened, like Thomas B. Marsh and other Mormons, to join or die. Have your home burned to the ground and your loot stolen and taken to what Thomas B. Marsh tells us was Diamond. He didn't know that it was an established church, because the name was actually Spring Hill. Remember? Section 116. Oh, right. Forged document. Yeah. This is a second witness of it being a forged document, not just the first primary source witness of the actual document that shows that it was written 40 years later. And thus was put into Brigham Young's 1876 Doctrine and Covenants. 1876, 1836. Oh, 1838. Yep, 40 years. Ta-da, forged document. Blatantly obvious. Joseph Smith never went there. Joseph Smith never said we're calling this Adam-on-Diamond. It was never established as a city. It was just called Spring Hill. The election in 1838 that the Danites caused the Mormon war with was a candidate was running for office with the platform of knowing and having an idea of how to develop the land up in Spring Hill. Well, oops, that was their secret headquarters. They can't have that. So they started a war. They didn't tell Thomas B. Marsh about the election. This is after the election war got started. And so these men take Thomas B. Marsh to Gallatin, and he witnesses the burning down of their homes and the buildings, the stealing of the property, the murder of the people, women and children too. Oh, yep, John D. Lee. Yeah, it wasn't a one-time fluke on 9/11/1857 for the Mountain Meadows Massacre. He's got a habit of murdering women and children. Right, Senator Lee? And so he witnessed them take it to what they called Diamond, to the storehouse. They claimed a storehouse in the location they called Diamond. He doesn't know the actual name, that it's Adam-on-Diamond. He doesn't say Adam-on-Diamond until the very end. He keeps calling it Diamond the whole time, and even when he calls it Adam-on-Diamond, it's Adam-on-Diamond. He spells it differently than everybody. So yes, he knows nothing of this. That's why he's saying they're claiming this. He is with them because they said, hey, we're at war, we're being attacked. Oh, okay, I'll join you. And then he sees what they're doing, and he says, I'm out. And he does this affidavit, and he's taking care of Orson Hyde, who got sick. And so the two of them sign it. And thus the extermination order by Governor Boggs. And so George Albert Smith who had a forged document to flee the country after Joseph Smith got out of Liberty Jail, tells the tale that Thomas B. Marsh fell from grace because he was defending his wife's honor over spilt milk. No. Lie. So first of all, if there was a church established in Spring Hill, it would have been called Spring Hill. Instead, they're calling it Diamond. So there's a couple of other contributing witnesses to this abomination by the Danites. The first is by Benjamin Franklin Johnson, who tells the tale that in 1838 he moved with his family to Adam-on-Diamond, which was only occupied by Danites, because the election was to determine how to develop the land. There was no town. And so he says, when I got there, I was immediately arrested by Danites. They threatened me to deny the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh, that's the same name that Joseph supposedly changed the name to in, 1838, section 115, forged document. 1876, Doctrine and Covenants. Wrong name of the church. Joseph Smith Papers makes it very clear that Joseph Smith was still using the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Made a change in vote in 1834. He gets out of Liberty Jail and he's still using the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Yep, the 1838 history, published in the Times and Seasons in 1842, the Church of the Latter-day Saints. So who were the evil-disposed and designing militant persons who were lying about the church to other people? The missionaries, yeah, Danites. Multiple witnesses of the fact of the real church history. And I am horrified that no ex-foe Nevermo could have figured this out. So Benjamin Franklin Johnson says that a hooligan was going to shoot him if he didn't deny the truth. And he said he wouldn't, and the pistol or rifle misfired. It never misfires. And so he continued to stay there and was a part of the war. Huh. Was one of those who framed and blamed Joseph Smith to get him locked up in Liberty Jail so Brigham Young could take over the church as the president of the first presidency of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Yep. This is the source for Brigham Young and his counselors to be the presidency of the church as 12 apostles. This is also the source for tithing for the Jesus storehouse treasury, rather than for the poor of section 119. Thomas B. Marsh's affidavit exposes this church and rips it a new one. So, Danites love to lie. So yeah, the whole intention was to overthrow the United States and the whole world in the latter days. The second witness, or the other witness, because there's been several, aren't there? Section 117 from their own forged document. They testify against themselves. And so here's where they put in Adam Andai Amen. Verse 11. Let my servant Newell K. Whitney be ashamed of the Nicolaitan band. Revelation chapter 2. You need to know Christian tradition of how evil these people were, how sexually depraved and abusive this group is. And for the Danites to forge this document claiming that it's by Joseph Smith, as he just condemns the group, this is the Danites. A Mormon involved with a group of Mormons, the Danites. This is a forged document because they're trying to claim, and of all their secret abominations. A secret combination. The Danites are sexually depraved abusers and are a secret combination with priestcraft, enforced by violence. Order of Nehor, huh? And of all his littleness of soul before me, saith the Lord. And so despite his wickedness, Joseph Smith then says, the Lord wants you to come up to the land of Adam on Diamond, which doesn't exist. 116 is a forged document. It wasn't by Joseph. And be a bishop unto my people. For what again? Oh right, that bishop's storehouse, where all the loot was taken for Jesus, not for the poor. And Mormons have missed this for 200 years. They're more focused on whether or not we're supposed to be real Christians with Trinity Jesus, that non-Trinitarian Jesus isn't real, or whether Joseph Smith used a rock and a hat, or whether the Book of Mormon was from Captain Kidd Barks. Saw that Equalizer episode yesterday. Whether or not the first and second vision, as well as the Kirtland vision, were real or just a fantasy created off of his head. Whether he can translate Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian or not. Whether he was a polygamist or not. Again, remember? Nicolaitan band and their secret abominations of sexual depravity, abuse. This is beyond adultery, by the way. This is scary stuff. Right, Mr. D. Dodd NoFap? And your superheroes of Nehor? This was the church that I was born and raised into. I was told it's the one true church. It's exactly as Joseph Smith established it. I'm sorry, but I'm able to read and understand what I read. And as such, I just ripped the church a new one. The storehouse was a pattern for Mormons that if they were righteous and got into the habit of doing, would have been built all around the world. So that when the latter days came, we'd have, let's see how many wards we have in the church. It's like 30 or 60,000 or something, isn't it? Every one of them with their own separate bishop storehouse, so that the Michigan church, yeah, the bishop could have done missionary work and said, oh, hey, yeah, you were married to a Mormon girl, huh, out in Utah, huh? Oh, your son is having medical problems? Yeah, we'll help you with that. Yeah, if you need the church, we have services on Sunday, as you know of. You can come in and worship. While your son gets treatment. No pressure to join the church or be baptized. Just being a good, loving neighbor. Why are you not popping up? I didn't want steaks. Still recording. Yeah, I'm still recording. Not frozen. 31,676 congregations, but are you including congregations as stake centers? Yeah, it must be congregations, because stakes is 3,608. Okay. Based on CIA estimates, who are spying on the church. So yeah, 31,676 wards that should have bishop storehouses with them. I did publish that book when I was living in West Valley City. I recommended it through my bishop to pass up through the line. Said, no! The leaders of the church will determine when and how to run this church, not you, Travis. Well, it's from the scriptures. Just offering a suggestion. No, you apostate! D-Dog gave me a call. Said you need to take down your video about how the Book of Mormon is true. It's going against the leaders of the church. Really? So Adam didn't fall? That man might be. Want to blame women, huh? That's so, D-Dod, Mr. Sex Abuser of NoFap. And Mormons still don't get it. They cannot debate me. They're automatically wrong. Mormons will never win in a debate. They can't defend this church. The church sabotaged Mormons with spiritual witness feelings. You lose every time. The scriptures are very clear, and when you study them, you know which ones are forged documents. You don't even need the Joseph Smith papers to know this. It's very blatantly obvious. Anything that goes against the Book of Mormon, which is the keystone, which is the word of Scripture as the law to govern the church, it's therefore wrong. And so you don't need to be concerned. How would Joseph Smith contradict his own revelation? What is he thinking? Try putting in forged document. You know, Mark Hoffman stuff. The apostles are not allowed. They are not authorized. This church has fallen with the death of Joseph Smith and needs to be restored. Remember that pretty picture as the thumbnail that Mormons all rejected? So apparently, all the hostages are freed. There are no more hostages for Hamas to use as bargaining chips. Oops, that was stupid of them. And so yes, the rest of this stuff, Hamas is never going to agree to. Because what is expected is that Hamas quit. That Gaza become a city without a military to defend it. Yeah. So good job, you gave away all the hostages. But Fox was letting us know that thousands of Hamas militants were gathering in Gaza, and so they were concerned that there might be something there. But I saw that Trump has signed into law, being the witness there, that all of the hostages were returned on the final day of Tabernacles, the Feast of the Jews, tents, sukkot, ingathering, harvest, etc. American troops will remain there to make sure that this whole ceasefire thing goes peacefully without an Armageddon nuclear blast that Bruce R. McConkie explained in graphic detail would be the cause of Scripture prophecy. Has nothing to do with America, has nothing to do with Mormons. Yeah. So, more pretty pictures were put in for you. Uncle Tom, Governor Cox. Was reminded about that in another episode of The Equalizer yesterday. It's the reboot with Queen Latifah. It's the final 5th season that came out on DVD the other week. I guess it was last week. When you assist a criminal, you yourself are a co-conspirator criminal. Governor Cox demanded to take over the investigation and be the press reporter to give the information about Charlie Kirk's assassination to the press. And in so doing, he lied. The assassin got away. Tyler Robinson didn't do it. There's more than enough evidence. And so the whole case that is being presented online is a character assassination with some forged documents and some interpretations of his life that they are creating as disapproving, and therefore proves he's a criminal, proves that he shot Charlie Kirk. No. Nope. But that's also disturbing, because if they did ballistics, as they're supposed to, since they're going to court for the death penalty, and it does match the particular rifle in the forest that didn't have DNA at the beginning until after Robinson turned himself in and gave DNA to the jail, which was then planted at the scene. If you pay attention to the timeline of when they released certain things and when they said certain things and then contradicted it later on. You see the conspiracy. They let the assassin go. Cox let the assassin go. He knew the information, he then changed it. We didn't know about the vehicle until after Robinson turned himself in. Because if they knew the vehicle from the guy that was walking back and forth with the two shirts, then they would have done a license plate check. They would have known who it was. They wouldn't have had to have waited until the next morning when, was it dad or mom or both? The story kept changing on who turned him in. But it wasn't because he did it. It was because he's maybe on the news. That sort of looks like our son. Son, turn yourself in. I didn't do it. Turn yourself in. You got a rifle from your grandpa. You did it, didn't you? Should have gone back to church. Paid tithing. So yeah, none of this is right. This is almost as evil as what they did to me in 2008. It's Governor Huntsman Jr. back then. So, Ali Velshi is on MSNBC. It's about to become opinion news in the new year. Fake news! They caved to the bullying of Fox. Fox kept telling us over and over again that we're fake news. I guess we are. We accept our identity. We're transitioning into fake news. And so Ali is well educated. He's from India. His heritage anyway, at least. I think he is also. That he's a documented citizen. I don't know if he's a birthright citizen or his parents, but I'm not going to check and look it up. But nonetheless, he's well educated. He's got a good head on his shoulders until October 7th, 2023, along with most of the whole world. But nonetheless, he was talking about Trump yesterday, talking about the concern of authoritarianism. He's been going over Project 2025. Trump confessed. We caught him in a lie. And he's talking about a sliding coup. We're sliding into authoritarianism. there's nothing his audience can do about it other than to rise up and protest and get violent. Because peaceful protests don't do jack. See, the civil rights were effective only because really? Section 118 is also a forged document. But fascinating that they forged the document calling Thomas B. Marsh Thomas. So that the footnoter had to put in A, i.e. Thomas B. Marsh. Fascinating. So there's 4. 52, Thomas B. Marsh, my servant Thomas B. Marsh. 56, servant Thomas B. Marsh. And so, after calling him by his full name, in verse 5 and 56, he then says servant Thomas. But officially, he starts off Thomas B. Marsh. And then, yep, 75, Thomas B. Marsh. Fascinating that they would think to get away with that. That's a tell of forged document. Joseph Smith always uses the full name, and here there is no full name. Fascinating. Anyway, and so the Civil War only got results in the amendments in the Constitution because of the violence of the police and the National... did they have National Guard come in? Or was it just the police who were beating down and murdering the people? That's the only reason why America looked on in horror as our government murdered American citizens wanting to be free. Same thing with women's rights. State of Utah, ordered by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, prevented women from being treated equally with the Equal Rights Amendment. Their whole platform was that women need to be trad wives. They don't need to be free. Family Proclamation. So yes, if the state of Utah had voted for the Equal Rights Amendment, it would have been passed. Or at least 2 others, I think, so that it could not be passed. But if the state of Utah had let it pass, it would have passed. But nope. Now SCOTUS overthrew Roe v. Wade. Women no longer have rights. 14th Amendment, Section 2 is null and void. Sperm has more rights than a woman. And a woman's dead body needs to be kept alive until the baby is born. From being raped and brutally murdered. Sperm must live. Sperm of the rapist. Because Jesus is a rape baby. A 14-year-old girl. Because we turned the Bible into literal history. Bleep the Jews. What do they know as the authors? And so other than that, we the people have no power over our government. We have to cause a revolution. We have to declare our independence. And we are outgunned by our own government. You should have trusted the Book of Mormon when it told you about Mosiah chapter 29. Why you cannot have a king. Red West Country Music Festival. Apparently AI is being used by our local weather girls, because if they're planning an event out in the weather, you'd think that the organizers would check the weather report in advance. And yet, even I, with my daily checks on the weather, did not see it coming. Because it was last month that Google AI changed the AI programming of their weather system. Previously, it wasn't accurate, but it was still somewhat accurate. I couldn't trust beyond a few days, but, you know, I got that day. But when it changed over, you know, it was trying to impress me with new, fancy, pretty pictures. Nonetheless, it can't even get real-time accurate. And so thus, if you remember, I prophesied of the coming flood with the date in advance that nobody saw coming. Because AI is being used now. It will not give us an accurate forecast. And nobody dares go back to the original, which at least was somewhat safe for a week in advance. AI is going to replace all the pretty little weather girls who are prophetesses, revelatoresses. Can't have that. We're going back to the Quorum of the 12 to lead the church. And so yes, apparently this caught them unaware. They didn't expect it. So so yeah, big power outage for that. Yeah, so I did the real-time video footage of the lightning striking, thunderstruck, for you with the new one from Saturday. The Parthenon was restored before the Salt Lake Temple. Athena will be there for the dedication. It's now the open house. Just in case you don't understand what the picture means. So with the storehouse again, Layton apartment had a fire. 30 residents are homeless. How many of them are Mormon, do you want to bet? How many of them have bishops without a storehouse, other than the shared one for the stake, which is a multi-stake shared storehouse? Not a single one of them will be given a return on their investment for fire insurance. I do need to find out what that's called. I guess it's just file a claim. An insurance claim is a request by a policyholder to an insurance company for coverage or compensation for a coverage loss or policy event. The insurance company validates the claim or denies it. If it is approved, the insurance company will issue payment to the insured or an approved interested party on behalf of the insured. Yeah, that's what the storehouse is supposed to be for. No. I'm just here to get the information and I'm gone. And so insurance claims cover everything from death benefits on life insurance policies to routine and comprehensive medical exams. Oh, like the Michigan boy of the father who was married to a Mormon once in Utah. That's the storehouse that I read to you. For the poor and the sick and afflicted and the needy. Not in that order. The church won't do it. Not even with the bishop's storehouse that is very lacking. Still not getting it yet? Still listening to me if you're a believing Mormon still? So yes, what the church is doing is criminal. They're stealing our money. They're robbing God, by the way, in case you hadn't caught on. When you're not giving to the poor, if you're not giving to Zion, we're supposed to be in Zion. We're waiting for the final four. Final four will not happen until the church falls. In case you hadn't caught on, that it means the church isn't true. It's these Captain Obvious moments that go right over Mormons' heads. And so, yes, I can see how Trump and what he is doing will help to facilitate getting Mormons gathered to Zion, as strange as it is. But Pam Bondi is a co-conspirator in the assassination of Donald Trump. We're just waiting to find out when it will be, to have all hell break loose in America, and then all bets are off, and I have to figure out another way to get Mormons to Zion, because the church isn't going to hand it over. They got rid of the first presidency, which was always the presidency of the 12 anyway. But still, Mormons at least were led to believe when they go to section 107, verse 91 and 92. They just need to stay away from verse 22. God. And so, yes, civil war is coming. Or maybe not. Maybe America is just too apathetic and we'll just let Trump roll all over us and we'll all be put in concentration camps. And Christians aren't going to be happy. Wait a minute. You were supposed to establish Jesus' kingdom in America, not lock us up in a concentration camp, Trump. So, yes, lots of orphan kids because of the evil parents who fought in the holy war against Israel to be martyrs, to get 72 child bride virgins. Those kids need to be deprogrammed of Islam. This is the whole cause, and nobody wants to acknowledge this. There will never be peace for Israel until Islam is exterminated from the face of the earth. The religion is evil. It is the order of Nehor, just like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, founded by Brigham Young, February 6th, 1851. Told you, multiple documented evidences. Islam is a death cult. And victims of a death cult have to go through severe deprogramming. But as children, it will be easier when you let them know that they were born into Islam with the Quran. And the Quran taught your parents to die for Allah so that you would suffer, so that the world would blame Israel instead. But when you have the whole world that will not cover this correctly, deprogramming will never happen. So Israel will never be safe, never be free, never be at peace. Yeah, we won't do those. I did the other pretty pictures for you instead. But yeah, Salem is peace. From Armageddon 1, when King David graced Salem with his presence. King David, Moses III. Thereafter, they then built the Temple of Salem, and every king was given the title King of Salem. In Paleo-Hebrew, it is Solomon. The N is a suffix determinative for king, as you see from the pretty picture that I put at the front. Which I'll have to make it 5 minutes long for you to go through and read it all, I guess. So yes, Babylon took away their peace. They were the first nation to displace the Jews of Judah, of Israel. And from Babylon, after Persia destroyed them, survivors fled into Saudi Arabia, and then 1,200 years later, 1150, something like that, came the birth of Muhammad, who knew about the history, who knew about the Christianizing of the Bible, and created his own religion called Islam, pretending to be the man like Moses, the prophet of the Jews. Yeah, Muhammad ain't got nothing on me. Ain't got nothing. But it doesn't matter, because Mormons still won't believe either. Mormons still won't believe. So, the final four: the fall, transfer of authority, Exodus, Zion. It's that simple. It's right there in the book of Exodus. The man like Moses. David, Moses, descendants. Emmanuel, the one mighty and strong. The church must fall, and great must be the fall thereof. They then have to transfer everything to me. I need the documents, the membership records. I need all the financing. We need it before Armageddon, because once Armageddon hits, money is worthless. We're then going to have to obtain the raw materials ourselves. And hopefully somebody will know how to use them to build. Don't make me have to do everything for you guys. Mormons. And with that transfer, I can then put out the Section 133 call to have all of the bishops, which were supposed to be in charge of the storehouse, bring you to Zion with the book of the law of those who want to come to Zion, who pass the first interview with their bishop. So when you get to Zion, you get the second judgment with the matching of the book of the law that the bishop gave me with what he has. If he picks up people along the highway on his way to Zion, he needs to notify me. We're picking up a few people. These are their names. So that when they get to Zion, the bishop will be assigned cabins, but Mormons don't want Zion, so if it's going to happen, it will be mash tents instead. God, making this so much harder for me. Those extra people will be given another interview with me before they, we can trust the bishop because he has to interview them anyway, and so he just needs to say, yeah, we got some extra people from outside the United States. If Trump is still in office and I have to get the $1 million gold Visa card for you to come to America, you need to have everybody, because I have to present that list to Trump to purchase the Visa cards for you to come to America. That's most likely going to be the second wave, but again, we're now in the last day in Jerusalem time of Tabernacles. At 6 p.m. tonight, it's over. The last day, that's it. Oh, he's taking it right to the very date. The final end. Just do this early. Why did now Oakes do a test run in 2020 anyway? What was he thinking? He had 200 years to plan and orchestrate this, and he's running a test run? Oh, God. Was it because Mitt Romney lost? That America wanted a black president rather than a Mormon? Probably. Probably. But yeah, the church would have acted as the Council of 50 when Romney would have gotten assassinated rather than the test run, almost assassinated, being dragged out to the gallows before they caught Mike Pence to hang him on the gallows. Test run. So yeah, I was right. 2024, for both conferences, they failed. Hilarious. But we don't have much time left. Those Jews who have been very impressive this year, they've got the enemy's playbook down to a T. Even surprising the enemy themselves, who have been plotting all this using the Jews to coordinate everything because of some extra stuff that they didn't know and expect, like the curse of Joseph Smith. But the Final Four, none of it has happened yet. That is why I'm having restless sleep, watching news after day of Mormons dead, not going to Zion, of the church exposing themselves to Mormons who are just clueless. All of the prophecies, all of the revelations, going over translations with you guys, and Mormons still won't believe. This is a hard-heartedness that is the deepest that it's ever been in human history. We are looking at a major tragedy event of a mass extermination. In the Book of Mormon, and Joseph Smith warned, there is the likelihood of a complete and utter failure with utter destruction. No Zion. The Book of Mormon. Those of you who read the ending first know very well it's a tragedy. Everybody dies. What is it going to take to get this church to hand it over, to stop the abuse of Mormons, to stop the murders, the thefts, the destruction, the lies? They just won't stop. Should have checked the church news today. It's not likely. Editor in charge would have to be notified because it's a holiday today. I'm pretty sure they would be working on Columbus Day now that it's no more Indigenous Persons Day. We've made Columbus Day great again. So, nope. 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 No, it's just Tad from Thursday, and then Stevenson dedicated the Elko Nevada temple. That's it. Still the same stuff. So yeah, notice I didn't cover those in any video, because it's not important. You know, Stevenson has no authority to dedicate a temple, and yet they don't care anymore. They have fooled Mormons, and now they've taken away the first presidency of the church. And Mormons are like, yay, church is true. Yay, we're hinge pointing. So, I can't help you, Mormons.